Coming up on Windows Weekly, I am in for Leo Laporte this week, and we have got a show for you. Paul Thurrott and Mary Jo Foley are here to talk about the newest announcement. It's Windows 365. Cloud PC? It's kind of both of those things, Mary Jo explains. Plus, we talk about continuing hand-wringing going on with Windows 11, some changes, some updates, some things that are lost, some things that are gained. We also, of course, have Xbox Corner and answer some questions from the audience. Stay tuned. It's a great show.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is Windows Weekly, episode 733, recorded Wednesday, July 14th, 2021. It's not for people. This episode of Windows Weekly is brought to you by PlexTrack, the powerful yet simple security management platform that helps you to get the real cybersecurity work done. With PlexTrack, you'll streamline your assessments, analytics, and reporting. Visit plextrack.com/twit and claim your free month. And by Endava. Subscribe and listen to Tech Reimagined, the podcast from Endava, from wherever you get your podcasts. It's time for Windows Weekly. This is the show where we talk all things Microsoft with two of the world's most wonderful Windows watchers. Up first, it's Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Microsoft.
Nice.
A nice pun. Yeah. I appreciate it. We are
good
also
to see you again.
It's good to see you too. Yeah, absolutely. And of course, we are also joined by Mary Jo Foley of All About Microsoft over on ZDNet. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to me to see you.
Yes.
Hello.
I know. It's been a while. It's nice to see you again.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, I can't remember not a lot of vacations being taken, so haven't had an opportunity to fill in. But my goodness, if there was ever an episode to get to fill in on, there's some news, some really exciting news. Now, you did kind of predict this, and I think that some folks maybe knew a little bit about it before it was out there in the wild, but. I believe it's the first thing we're talking about. Paul has to wait for Xbox news until later, so I am pumped to hear your thoughts on Windows 365.
Yes, I have many thoughts on this. First off, the name. Let's talk about the name.
Yeah.
So all during beta tests, this thing was codenamed or named Cloud PC, which I thought was a great name.
Yep.
And then when they announced this service today, they're like, so we have Windows 365, which is the virtualization service built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop, and it lights up your cloud PC experience. I'm like, wait, what does that mean? Like, what's the cloud PC part, right? I get the service part, but what's the cloud PC part? And so then Melissa Grant, who's a product manager on Microsoft 365, explained to me, and she said, so you know how you have a PC on your desk? I'm like, yep. So what if you had one in the cloud PC? So it's like the back end, and like if you think, where is all my data and my settings and all these things that we're putting in the cloud being stored? It's this virtual cloud PC thing. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, I think you should have just called the whole thing Cloud PC.
Yeah.
And why did we have to throw Windows 365 in here? I get why, right? Because they have Office 365, Microsoft 365, Dynamics 365. So they want to show this is Windows being virtualized. But I think it kind of adds a layer of complexity in terms of the branding that doesn't really need to be there.
So like they're going to be using both, is what you're saying. Cloud PC is...
Yeah.
is go ahead.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I kind of enjoy how they reused Cloud PC even after killing it as the name,
I know.
And I think for the businesses that this targets, what they're trying to differentiate is you can still manage your traditional on-prem or remote physical PCs alongside your cloud PCs in the same management, Microsoft endpoint, whatever it's called.
Manager, yeah.
Manager, yeah. So okay.
Yeah.
I agree with you, though. I suppose this precludes them from ever offering any other client operating system in the cloud directly to businesses like, I guess, Chrome
Linux.
or what do you call it? Linux, maybe. But if it's going to be Windows only, and it is, I mean, it's not a horrible name, I guess.
No.
So Microsoft, you're saying that could be something that Microsoft could have done, is offer Linux
Well,
in the cloud?
I mean, to what end, right? I mean, obviously, developers are using Linux VMs and businesses are using Linux and Azure as well. But end users using Linux, and then end users using Linux remotely is way off the scale,
right?
I think from a niche perspective. So it's not really necessary. So you want to call the thing Windows something. I guess Windows 365 makes some sense.
Why not just call it Teams? I'm kidding.
I know, right? Call everything Teams. Why not?
So, Mary Jo, I have one major question I'm hoping you can answer for me.
Okay, I'll try.
And I have some suspicions, or I guess some educated guesses based on what I've seen from their materials and then from screenshots. For this thing to be truly useful, I think they need to offer end users, virtualized apps, not entire desktops. Both is fine, right? I mean, some people will need the entire desktop. Do you know whether that's a feature of this service right now? In other words, go ahead,
So I asked about this because I'm like, okay, so Windows 365 lets you basically stream Windows from the cloud, right? It synchronizes your settings, your tools, and the apps that you have running on Windows. Like this is interesting. Developers don't need to do anything to their apps. If you have an app running on your desktop, like it just works. Like if somebody already has brought such and such an app to Windows, you have to only use Windows 10 or 11 once 11's available. But then, when you read into the fine print, it's not just this. I should be very clear. This is for businesses, right? Like the requirements for Windows 365 are, you have to have Windows VDA E3, EMS, which is Endpoint Management Service E3, or Microsoft 365 F3, E3, F5, right? So this isn't for just like you or me saying, hey, I want to virtualize my desktop and use it on my home PC. It's not for us.
Okay,
right.
That's some clarity that I did not get. So this is not the opportunity for folks to be able to run things that they can't run on their Mac or other system on.
But don't you sort of feel like it is going to head that direction?
I kind of feel like it will head in that direction. I do. In fact, if you're a business user and you have the rights to use Windows 365 through your organization, you can run it on an iPad at home as long as your company lets you do that, right? I mean, you can run it on a consumer device. You just can't be a consumer and subscribe to it yet.
Someone in the chat's pointing out a really important point. Given that Mary Jo hates consumers, she must have encouraged Microsoft to not give this to consumers.
I'm sorry I typed that in the chat.
I know.
No, so well, that's okay. So one thing they didn't reveal was the price, right? And Mary Jo and I kind of talked about this offline, but the fact that this is very much relegated to bigger enterprises that are spending lots of money with Microsoft suggests that the price they will eventually advertise will be higher than people will like, and there'll be a lot of complaining. But you need to understand those guys all get volume licensing, and the actual cost to them will probably be significantly less than whatever the list price is that they finally come up with.
Right.
That said, what do you think? Where do you think that's going to land?
I don't even know. I don't know. They told us August 2nd is when this becomes generally available, and they said we'll release the pricing right around then. The one thing they did release today were like the cloud PC sizes. So if I did a post about this, and I put their screen capture for this. So there's all different like classes of what you would get if you subscribe at different price points. So we can see what the price points are going to be. Like there's the 1 CPU, 2 CPU, different amounts of storage and RAM, right? And along their categories, they say, okay, if you're a frontline worker, you can get away with the 1 CPU, 2 gig, 64 gig configuration of this, right? So that'll be a fairly low price. But then when you get up to being like software developer, engineers, content creators, that kind of thing, they're recommending you go with the 8 CPU, 32 gig, 512.
8 CPU? Really?
Yeah.
8 CPU? That's a fairly beefy. I mean, like 8 core? Or
maybe 8
core? Virtual CPUs. Right?
Oh, interesting.
8 virtual. So like this is how they're thinking about it. They're thinking about, how with gaming, this is my understanding, and I may be wrong, but like with Xbox, the way they run the game streaming stuff is they have Xboxes in the cloud, right? And you're actually running in Xbox in Microsoft's data centers. I think this is going to be like that, right? They're going to have machines there running Windows with your apps, and this is why there are all these different sizes and configurations, right? Because they're saying, okay, if you're this kind of a user, you're going to want a lot more horsepower than if you're this kind of user, right?
Yeah. 8 vCPU virtual processor. Interesting.
Yeah. So we don't know the price of these different tiers, but those are the tiers that they're listing as the sizes.
I bet this is going to be disappointingly expensive to people that were hoping
it's gonna be pricey. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's going to be $19.99 and up.
It's going to be per user per month. We know that, but we just don't know the numbers. Right?
Can we talk about how this looks? So now that we've thrown out consumers, as Microsoft is wont to do,
exactly,
and we look at this from the sake of, or from the perspective of business, you get hired at a place that's using Cloud PC or Windows 365, and what do they? I mean, if you have a Windows computer that they give you, then why do you need to use the virtual version of the same thing that you have locally? Are they going to give you some other device? What's the idea here behind having a virtual PC if a lot of the stuff we can do on the device that we have?
Yeah.
So one thing is if you have this subscription plan, you can run your Windows remote desktop on iPads, you can run it on Linux machines, you can run it on phones, like Android phones. It's not just, Macs. You don't have to have a Windows PC. Like once you get this virtual service set up, you can run it on a device of your choice, and you can even switch between devices. Like say you're using a Windows PC at work, and then a Mac at work, and then you come home and you're using an iPad. You can just keep your state exactly the same and switch between the different devices.
Got it.
So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, you can save money by not giving computers to employees that don't need them too. And then because the management of these things occurs in the cloud, it's more timely with regards to security updates and all that kind of stuff. And also the state management thing that Mary Jo mentioned is not a feature of Windows generally, right? In fact, if anything, they're scaling back the sync capabilities in Windows 11. So this is a way to kind of enable that stuff. I mean, you could be in an internet cafe in Prague or something, or at someone's house, and something important work-related comes in, and you sign in through a web browser, do your two-factor authentication, and you're into exactly where you left off. Doesn't matter what computer you're using or what device, So, this is. It's not like this replaces anything. Honestly, it's just another option.
Exactly. Right.
And different types of businesses, different.
Yeah. We should be super clear about this because I've gotten this question twice on Twitter already. This is not Microsoft drawing a line in the sand saying, so everybody has to start using Windows in the cloud. Like I don't even think we'll ever see that day, right? I think there will always be the option to keep using Windows as it is on your PC installed locally. This is just another option, and it's definitely not for everyone, right? Like it's not like, I think when Leo first heard about it, he's like, this is the future of computing, right?
Windows. This is like the future of Windows,
Right.
And it's like, not exactly. Yeah.
Not exactly, right. So the other case they gave, or the other example of why you would want to do this is, say you want to access something that's really a big program that has a lot of compute requirement, like, I don't know, AutoCAD. Like I'm trying to think of something really big. If you could access that in the cloud,
Teams.
even though your machine, Teams, yes, you could access it in the cloud, right? But you wouldn't have to have a super beefy machine to access it from, because all the compute power is in the cloud. So you could technically be like, okay, let me start using AutoCAD on my iPad, right? Even though I don't have it locally installed, like I can use it from the cloud. So their example is, there's all this software out there that runs already on Windows, but a lot of people have been prohibited from running it locally because they didn't have powerful enough machines. So if you can run it in the cloud, you can use any machine in theory, right?
There's still all these options. I mean, one of the interesting things about Windows is you can sign in with a corporate account. It will apply whatever policies that your workplace requires onto the machine. And then you get into weird separation of church and state, where maybe you have personal information on there as well as work information, and there's select white capabilities. It gets really complicated quick. I mean, I think in a lot of circumstances, even when work might have given you a computer to use for work, some might still want you to use this thing because it's known to be up to date. The state management stuff, the apps are deployed securely. And if your computer has a virus or something, or some kind of ransomware thing happening, it doesn't impact the remote environment in the slightest. So it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, they're playing security up as big, right? Like they're saying, okay, all your data and your settings, everything is going to be in the cloud and behind two-factor authentication, requiring Azure Active Directory, zero trust model, blah, blah, blah. So they're going to play the security card really hard with this. Like if you have people who need to have like absolute security, I've already seen people on the web going, I don't trust Microsoft. I'm not going to put my data in their cloud. Okay, well, if you aren't, then you're not the
Then why on earth are we discussing this product?
I know, right. Why are you even caring about this, right?
Right.
I don't trust Microsoft. What I'm going to do is create a local account on my computer, then manage it myself.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know.
I know. I feel like it's not exactly what people were thinking when we kept talking about Cloud PC, even though I got to say the leaks were pretty accurate. Like we knew it was built on top of Azure Virtual Desktop. We knew it was going to be this kind of pricing model where you're not charged for consuming Azure resources. We knew a lot of the bits and pieces, but I think people still didn't all put it together in their head till today. And they're like, oh, wait, I don't really want that. Right?
It's not for people,
not for
right? Not yet.
It's not for people. It's for the machines.
Well, and for those businesses that do need this kind of virtualized environment, I mean, Microsoft does still have Azure Active Azure Virtual Desktop, and they'll keep offering that. And that's a different, it's the same type of thing, but the way you pay for it is completely different. It's consumption based. And so it may make more sense for some businesses that have seasonal explosions of activity where they need to, wind these things up, maybe over the holidays or whatever time period it is, and then never use them again for the rest of the year. Maybe that other model makes more sense. The existing model with Azure, I keep wanting to call it Active Directory, Azure Virtual Desktop. But for I don't know, it's going to be interesting to see what the adoption is, and then how companies use it.
It will be.
Someone in the chat asked if you can, and I don't know if you would even know this yet, if you can install Win32 apps in this system.
Yeah, it's straight up Windows. Yeah,
it is. Any app that runs on Windows 10 or 11 is just going to work.
Yeah, even it's not a lockdown.
Even custom apps, line of business apps, custom apps. Like if it runs on Windows, it'll work. Like nobody will have to touch it or do anything. It'll just work.
Nice.
Yep. And then they have this App Assure program at Microsoft. So if there is some weird reason you set this up and you had an app that your company built or some other third-party app and it didn't work, you can go to Microsoft and say, hey, this app doesn't work on this, and they will fix it.
And by the way, that will statistically never happen, right? I mean, it's a 99 point something % success rate as far as app compatibility. So it's got to be something really esoteric, or I can't even imagine what kind of app that would be. But
I know. The one thing, I don't know if you remember this, Paul, we talked back in 2014 on Windows Weekly a lot about this rumor about Windows 365. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah, of course. And then, but at the time, right, everyone was like, here we go. This was like Microsoft getting you to pay for Windows every month.
It was.
Which everyone thought was the doom scenario. And correctly, by the way. That would have been really stupid.
I know, that would have been. Yeah, so I'm like, I was like, oh, I can't believe you guys reused that name. I said that to someone at Microsoft, and they're like, Mary Jo, you're the only person who's going to remember that. I'm like, no, I won't be the only person. Other people were very scarred by that event.
Memories go deep. Exactly. Every slight perceived or real.
Yeah. Yeah. I like all the stuff. If you're an IT pro, you should definitely dig into the documentation on this stuff, because you're going to be able to do a lot of things with this service if you're interested in it around, like you said earlier, Paul, Endpoint Manager will work across your local PCs and this at the same time. They've got all these new analytics services connected with this, so that if you've got a whole bunch of users deployed on Windows 365 and you have them, say, in groups, you can watch and see, are all the groups working quickly? Or is the performance good on everybody's network? Is everybody functioning correctly? And if not, it'll send you an alert so that you can fix it. I think that's pretty nice. And then if you're an SMB, small, mid-sized business, and you're like, I don't really have people who can manage that kind of thing, there's going to be an option that they're kind of calling this now self-serve, so that you can set it up so Microsoft does that on your behalf, and they tweak the settings, and they send you, the one lone admin or whatever, alerts if things are happening on your network. So I'm like, you know what? This could be attractive to some people who need that kind of ability to kind of monitor and do things like compliance and governance and all that. I think it could be interesting for them.
Yeah. What impact does this have on business purchases of new computers? Does this mean that the OEMs are going, well, thanks for doing this, because now nobody's buying new machines at the business level? Obviously, this isn't for personal individual use right now, but are now. This
is just the latest in a long journey, to use an overused term, where, well, we used to, not that journey. We used to be, IT used to be a very different thing, and it was all about people coming into an office, using a computer, and then leaving and going home. And that computer would sit there at night and not be used. And over time, we kind of developed that bring your own device theory, where, people could, not always come into work and would be using their home device, and that stuff I talked about earlier, where they have remote wipe and the separation of personal and work data and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's complex, and today Microsoft always talks about this hybrid world of the future, the new normal and everything. And, it's there. You could look at one business and say, okay, this is how things work. And then you would look at the second one and it's completely different. So everyone, does things different ways, have different needs and wants, whatever. And, Microsoft just has expanded its offerings to account for every possible permutation of this. I mean, you'll see very big businesses that will have some offices where people still come in and sit at a computer and use it in a room, but they'll have others working remotely or traveling or working from home or whatever it is, sometimes using work computers, sometimes using personal devices, and there'll be mixes of different things going on in those businesses, and this will be part of it. It's not... Yep. It's not like this thing swoops in and it's like, we stop building PCs,
I think what we're going to see is some PC vendors are going to say, you know what, we're going to create a Windows 365 PC, like a thin client type thing, and sell that with that branding as kind of like a workplace solution. So I think it could spur sales of new devices if you need thin clients for some reason, or you don't have PCs.
If only Microsoft had Windows 10X, this would have made tons of sense.
I know, exactly. Right?
But
yep.
Okay.
And they announced this today because today is their first day of their annual partner show called Inspire, and so that what they're trying to make happen is they're talking to ISVs, they're talking to their PC partners at the show, and they're talking to all these cloud solution providers and managed solution providers and saying, guys, here it is. We want you to go sell this. Like, add value on top of it in some way, with hardware, with software, with other services, and we want you to sell this. So that's why they announced it at Inspire. So I think you're going to see some new kinds of bundles, maybe from like integrators and resellers using this at the heart of it, and then them adding value on top of it.
They could manage it for you as well. I'm sure that might be not a bad offer.
We've got more to talk about with this and with more, but
no, we don't. This is all we're talking about.
We'll be back with more, but a quick break real quick to tell you about PlexTrack, who are bringing you this episode of Windows Weekly. It's the security management platform that brings you better reports, deeper assessments, and more insights. Do you spend hours and hours reporting security issues and feel like it's getting you nowhere? Are you buried in data but still can't get a full picture of your security posture to prioritize remediation effort? Well, we've got the solution for you. PlexTrack empowers continuous assessment, automated workflow, and effective collaboration between teams to help cybersecurity professionals do more in less time. Create assessment reports in half the time and centralize your remediation efforts across all scans, assessments, and audits through powerful risk visualizations, scanner and ticketing integrations, and enhanced analytics to effectively communicate risks in real time. Whether red or blue, there is a PlexTrack for every security professional to save time and get the right work done. Red teams can import findings from numerous vulnerability scanners, include screenshots and videos photos with auto formatting, create customized templates and export to Word with one click, streamline the report writing process to deliver better reports faster. And Blue Teams can customize internal and external assessment questionnaires, synchronize findings with task management tools like Jira Cloud, assign findings to team members and track status over time, and provide attestation of security posture with robust analytics. If you want to learn more, well, there are some in-person events now, and the PlexTrack team will be in Las Vegas for Hacker Summer Camp 2021. For those visiting Sin City for Black Hat and DEF CON, give a shout out to PlexTrack on social if they'll see you there. Connect with PlexTrack at their hospitality suite and open house to see how PlexTrack fits your unique use case, or simply challenge your skills with their purple teaming CTF. Try PlexTrack free for 1 month and see how it can change your life as a security professional. Simply go to plextrack.com/twit and claim your free month. That's plextrac.com/TWIT. And of course, thank you to PlexTrack for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. We appreciate it. All right, we got more Windows 365 to talk about?
No, we're done with that.
You're done? Are you sure? Mary Jo, are you done? You got anything else you want to add?
Not really. What I was thinking about when I saw this announcement was, okay, there are some people who don't need their Windows desktop streamed, right? If you can just have your Office 365 or your Microsoft 365 apps and run them on any platform, that's enough for many people, maybe even most. I'm curious how many people will need the full desktop or want the full desktop experience streamed, or if they can just get away with using the apps.
Yeah, so then, Leah, let me rephrase that in a question that I'd love to hear just your sort of response to. Obviously, that's what a question is for. But who is Windows 365 not for? We get who it's for, but who is it not for?
Well, it's not for consumers yet.
Right.
You know they didn't talk at all today about this, but I think it is going to be for schools and educational institutions. They didn't really address that market, but I know, because I know a couple of people who are testing it, that they have been testing Cloud PC with educational customers. So I'm like, I want to hear more about how they're going to make that work, or what the value prop is for them. And
honestly,
why...
That does make sense, right? Because
it makes sense, right?
Education is infamously cash-strapped.
Yeah.
They'll need to kind of lower the price enough for it to make sense. But there are probably schools that can't afford to buy. No, there are most schools can't afford to buy $1,000 computers up front for every student.
Yeah.
But what they could afford to buy maybe is $300 computers, which would be kind of a terrible Windows local experience. But if you can stream this thing down from a data center, it might actually make sense,
Right.
And I think that may emerge as one of the biggest initial use cases.
True. And the other one I'm a little weirded out about, I guess, is because they made a big deal of saying this is for SMBs and enterprises, right? Small, mid-sized businesses.
Yeah.
But I don't really know. Is this really for small and mid-sized businesses? Because
it doesn't seem like it.
It seems very complicated and probably very expensive, right?
Probably very pricey. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, but they made a point of saying that to me several times when I was talking to them. They're like, "This is a big SMB play," and I'm like, "Is it? Okay. We'll see."
You got to. If you think back to the beginning of Office 365, actually before, which was what, Business Productivity Online Suite or whatever, right? So really early days. BPOS, yeah. The promise there is managing Exchange and SharePoint at the time, or whatever the various server components were, was complex and very expensive. You had to build up local infrastructure, and you'd have to hire experts to maintain it. There would be zero-day vulnerabilities. It's just, the message is like, well, just let Microsoft handle this. I mean, who better to manage Exchange or these other servers than the people that made it, right? And it makes sense. And I think when you look at Windows, there are people like us who are just used to using it. It's what we use, and we're very familiar with it. But it's we live in a complex world. They want Windows 11 to have TPM 2.0 and newer Intel or AMD processors that are less vulnerable to these meltdown type vulnerabilities and ransomware and so forth. The story right now is the same. It's like, okay, we're still offering this stuff. and we will for the foreseeable future. I think with Windows, they always will. But, for those businesses that just don't want to spend the time and effort to keep on top of all this stuff and do all the updates that are going to happen almost every single week for the rest of your lives. Yep. How much is it per month? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that's how it goes. I mean, I think that's the message.
That could be. Yep.
Just how it works.
Yeah.
All right. Is it time to move on?
Yeah, I think when it's closer to August 2nd, we'll have more information, like the pricing and maybe more details.
Pricing is the big one. It's going to be too expensive up front, and that's going to just be for a lot of people the hard block, and they're going to say, okay, whatever. But again, I think it does expand. I don't think this thing's going to be appropriate for small and medium-sized businesses up front. I really don't.
Oh wow, not even SMBs.
No.
Okay.
No. I think this is going to make most sense for those companies that already have a management infrastructure in place, whatever it is. And they're big, and they need that variety of choices for different types of users, and this will be one of those choices. Mm-hmm. That's my guess, based on what we saw today.
Yep.
Until then, I'll just keep using xCloud and thinking of it as my own personal version of Windows 365.
Which, by the way,
Xbox Live Cloud Streaming 2.0. What's it called?
Listen, I can't even tell you. They should have called that Xbox 365.
Yeah,
right. Should have.
Yeah.
I mean, It's actually called Xbox Cloud Gaming, which is a feature of Xbox Game Pass Ultimate only, which, by the way, is a $14.99 per month subscription. Very expensive for a consumer service.
Yeah.
And that's not why, but I mean, you can kind of extrapolate out the logic here. This, I keep wanting to call it Cloud PC. Windows 365 is not going to be cheap. It's not going to be cheap.
I mean, arguably there is some sense to that, given what we're talking about, 8 CPUs the folks will be using.
Sorry, I think it's 8 cores. I saw people saying that on Discord.
Yeah, I was thinking I was thinking
8 vCPUs. However you want to think of that, if that's in terms of cores or what have you. But that's potentially a lot of hardware on their side too. So. There's some sense to the cost, right?
They're virtual course.
That's
so. I mean, it's sort of they must apply some kind of compute score to processor cores, and then what they can do up in the cloud is they kind of map it to that. I'm sure it's not literally an 8-core CPU that only you are using, but I don't know, But again, this is the whole promise of the cloud. Don't worry about the infrastructure. Microsoft will build this thing out. If they need more, they'll do that. You just pay for the thing and use it, and you don't have to worry about it. Mm-hmm. And I honestly, everyone was so resistant to cloud computing in the beginning. Now it's very much accepted. I mean, obviously there are regulatory reasons why sometimes you can't do certain things or whatever. I get that, of course. But I mean, I think the general resistance to this has pretty much disappeared. And we have to get over the little mental block here. Windows 365, But I think the same arguments are going to apply, and I think they're going to work.
Mm-hmm. Well, we shall see. Moving on to hand-wringing, as you kind of segued to there a little bit at the end. People have more thoughts about Windows 11.
I don't know if you've watched the past few shows, but we've gone through the 7 stages of aggravation. I don't know what to call it.
With
the 7 stages of outrage, mostly around hardware requirements.
What is it called?
TPM 2.0.
TPM,
8th gen or newer Intel processors. I don't want to ever forget the fact that Windows 11 Home requires an internet connection and a Microsoft account. We should never stop being outraged by that. No, we shouldn't. I mean, don't ever let that one slip by. But Windows 11 is nice. I mean, I have to say, partially because I've switched over to Windows 11 pretty much, except for one thing. I review laptops, and I did to one actually, but I'm not typically going to just upgrade a machine to Windows 11. I have to use the thing that it comes with.
Right.
And when you go back to Windows 10, it's like, man, this is it's not as nice. I didn't think if you had asked me, I don't know, 3 months ago, 5 months ago, I wouldn't have said like, oh, it's garbage, But you use Windows 11, it's like, actually, Windows 10 is kind of, it's
and
kind of interesting.
It's pretty much the same.
Right. That's true.
Right. Like when I switch back and forth, I'm just like, So the only thing that's different for me is the icons are to the left instead of centered, and the start menu, which I never use, looks different.
Right.
I heard they
Otherwise,
removed
it's exactly the same.
the registry option to shift the taskbar
Yeah.
to the left, or the
That's right.
start menu
they
to the
did.
left.
Yeah.
I wonder
That's
if they'll
true.
bring that back, or if it's just
I know.
they're saying
We don't
no,
know.
this is the new way.
Well, that's part of the ongoing outrage, I guess, the hand wringing.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I
haven't had any. I haven't had any black screens of death or whatever we're going to now.
Oh, yeah,
I haven't had
the
any
new-
problems with it. Right.
Yeah, I have.
You have?
I've had major reliability issues with File Explorer that other people don't seem to have, which is fascinating because it's happening on multiple computers. But I still prefer it, you know. And just as I hate to use the term power user, but as someone who's very familiar with Windows and has my own way of doing things, and I know all the keyboard shortcuts and everything, there are things that are less, you know, in this version. When you right-click the desktop or the taskbar, there's many fewer options than there used to be, and I used to use some of that stuff a lot. And you have to kind of work around it. Then there are other goofy things like Windows key plus A in Windows 10 brings up Action Center, which is where your notifications are. But if you do Windows key plus A in Windows 11, you get quick settings, which is not where your notifications are. It turns out it's Windows key plus N now, by the way. But, you know, you just have to kind of learn those things. And it's like, okay. So I don't know. And actually, I'm interested. I think Mary Jo probably has a good answer for this, but I get a lot of people who ask me, because I keep talking about how important it is to provide feedback and everything,
Yeah. Right.
and hopefully change some of the dumber decisions. But you have to wonder if this thing isn't pretty much in the can, right?
It is. It's
and
done. It's done.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And you know, this week, tomorrow maybe, or today, whatever, they'll release a new build, and maybe next week they will again. And those things will have improvements in them, and some of those improvements will involve some of the things that we and others have complained about. And we will feel good about this because we will think our feedback has been heard. But I actually don't think that's how that works. I think that's coincidental. I think that they are compiling feedback and that they are intending to make some changes based on that, but that we will see that in V2 or V3 or whatever. And that I think this thing's barreling toward completion. And so that's, I kind of want, maybe I'll ask that as a question. Like, that's right? I mean, does that seem
Right. Yeah.
where we
I
are
mean,
really with this thing?
Yeah, the test build that we got last week in the dev channel, it was 22.000.65, so barely a tiny increment above what the first release was, right? It was all fixes, basically. And so you know how this works. They'll get this version to their OEMs, and they'll make this the one. And then the next several months, they'll issue cumulative updates that everybody will be testing in the various rings, right? And it'll just be very small tweaks, maybe a couple features, new features here and there, but it's done. Like, this is what Windows 11 is. This is it.
This is going to sound like
it.
a dumb. I don't mean this as a proof point, but I will just say I find this fascinating. This is the first version of Windows in some form of a beta in decades.
Yeah.
That the first public beta, I'll call it, has appeared, and the thing that's missing is the watermark from the desktop. Right? Usually during the Insider program, you've got a watermark the whole time.
Oh,
and there's no
I see what you're
watermark.
saying.
And usually one of the last things they do before they complete a product like Windows, some version of Windows, is they remove the watermark from the desktop.
Right. That's true.
And this one shipped without it from day one. And I think that is, I know that's nonsense logic in some ways, but I think that in some ways points to how far along this thing is. You know, we're not even going to put that thing on there because literally 22,000 is the final build. It's just a question if it's 22,000.75 or 86 or, you know, whatever number it is, you know.
And, you know, the features that are in Windows 11, like all the new touch capabilities and things like that, what do they call it? Voice typing. All those had already been tested in the dev channel, right? They just pulled them back before they did Windows 10, you know, the last version of Windows 10, 21H1 or whatever.
Right.
But you've already tested them. Like, if you're thinking, you know, oh, we haven't tested it, though. You already tested those months ago. So you've already done that if you're an insider.
Yeah. I will say, and I wrote, this is the second part of this little story. I wrote about this, I guess, the other day, but, you know, as a power user, I like I said, they remove things. And for me personally, it's a little weird. It's like, I'm so used to doing things a certain way and it's gone. And I'm like, you know, but I'm okay with it because I really feel like one of the Achilles heels of Windows is that they've tried to make it appeal to too many different types of people, and they provide too many different ways of doing the same thing. And so like one of the things I sort of liked about this minimalist look that they have to Windows 11, at least from the beginning, was that they're, this is not absolute, but I mean, there's fewer ways to do things than there used to be. That means for people like me who are used to doing things a certain way, we'll be maybe left in the dark a little bit, but we're familiar with enough with the system that we can figure that stuff out. It's okay. But even in that first build, I've already seen like a total scale back of this.
Yeah.
And they added back two things that had been missing before. And I don't think they should have added these things in at all. And, one of them is right click in the refresh option, which is not necessary almost ever, but it's something, if you need it, you can just click on the desktop and hit F5. It does the same thing. Like it was available in a sub-menu, and it's like they've surfaced again. It's like, okay, so there goes one little bit of simplicity. But the big one is this search option thing, right? Like Windows has had start search. Well, Windows has had, the start menu's had a search option since probably Windows 95, but start search as we know it today has existed since Windows Vista. There's always been like a little UI to it, In Vista, there was a search box. In, I guess, probably Windows 8.1, or at least certainly in Windows 10, they added, actually it was Windows 10, they added a search box to the taskbar. They made it even more obvious. You didn't have to open Start. But you could just, hit Start and start typing. Just like on the Mac, you can hit Command Space and start typing. It's the same exact thing. In fact, you could argue Windows is not only first, but easier because it's only one key you have to hit.
Yeah, one key versus, exactly, yeah.
But you have to know that it exists, right? So I don't mind that they add UI to facilitate it because most normal people, users, mainstream users don't even know this feature exists. So that's cool. And I can recommend to more advanced users that you can remove those UI elements from the taskbar at least because you don't need them, they don't do anything. And in Windows 11, there was a search button, not a search box. And you can remove it. And it's like, okay, fine. They got, it's a little smaller than it was. That's fine. But then in the second build, they added a search box to start. It's like, guys, you don't need a third way to do this. And actually, there are 4 UI points for start search in Windows 11 now. 4.
Wow.
Could you just have one? Just have one. And by the way, let it be removable so that the people who don't need that aren't cluttered, their UI isn't cluttered up with superfluous nonsense. But here we are, and so I'm a little nervous that they're going to fall back to their old way of doing things as feedback comes in, and Microsoft just, I think, psychologically cannot help wanting to please everybody.
Right.
And I think they're just going to turn this thing into what, like what Windows has always been. It's like, this is your opportunity to draw a line,
I know. So Windows is obviously like the base operating system and kind of the starting point. But you know what else Windows is? It's a vehicle for Microsoft to get people to use Bing and MSN, right? That's how they see it at Microsoft, right? So when you're talking about how many different ways you can do search, it's because maybe they can trick you, at least in one of those places, to use Bing as your search engge. I know I sound really cynical.
Do they make money off of that?
True.
Is that why? Or
yes.
Is it clout?
Yes, they sell ads on Bing.
But if I've got
Bing
an
well, I guess, but so look, like I said, making a feature discoverable is smart, right? So for example, Mac, you're familiar with the Mac, the Command Space thing. How did you even learn about that, right?
Right.
I mean, there's nothing in the Apple doesn't pop up a little bubble that says, "Hey, by the way,
Yeah.
you can search for anything." You had to read about it somewhere. No, so Microsoft doesn't do stuff like that. They'll. Clippy will pop up. Hey, it looks like you're trying to write a ransom note. Like Microsoft can't help itself, right? So
they can't.
They'll put like a search. They put a search box in Windows 10 in the taskbar, and I'm like, okay. I thought that was cool because you could turn it into a button if you wanted to save space. You could get rid of it because honestly, it's pointless. You don't need it. But if you don't know the feature exists, I mean, it's fine. But they've added one now to the search to start now, and it's like, well. Now I can see 2 UIs right now for this.
Yeah.
Oh, neither one of them are needed. If I start typing right now, it works. I don't need to click on anything. Yeah. But now there's the UI cluttering up the start menu that I can't remove, and it's like I don't know. I just don't. I wish there would be. They talk up design, like good design, so much.
Yeah.
And I really don't feel like they have any design sense at all. And I hate to. I'm not applauding it, but Steve Jobs in the comments he made about Microsoft in class or whatever it was in the 1990s. I mean, I think it kind of apply to this right here. It's like, could you just go down to 2? You could have 2.
Yeah.
Don't have 4. Have 2. You know?
Yeah.
No, I don't know.
You do wonder what leads to the decisions, though.
They can't say no.
You're
to
thinking they're not. You're thinking they're not based on anything user experience wise, like data that they've gotten. It's just decisions that they're making, or misinterpretation.
I don't know what to say. I don't know what to say. There's a search button.
Mary
in the
Jo
taskbar.
has it figured out. She suspects.
Guys, it's to sell ads.
It's very grim.
Okay. Yeah. So in
cynical
other words,
take.
all right. No. By the way, but accurate as well, right? I suppose you could look at it like banner ads on a website. It's like we have a banner ad above the article, and it's like, well, that's driving a certain amount of revenue. What if we put a block ad right in the middle of the article? Would that drive more? Great. And then eventually you get to the point where now there's 12 ads in this thing, and you can't even read the content because stuff's moving over it or whatever. And like these are the kind of cliffs you try to avoid with UX design. You have to make money, but you have to strike some kind of a balance. And
does hitting the Windows key and typing something in ever serve ads, though? I don't know that I've seen ads there.
No. Right?
Well,
no, like if you hit Windows A, an ad doesn't come up.
I mean, no, but if I no, so no, an ad does not come up, at least the thing I'm searching right now, no, but I just type in a general thing like Apple, I can get web results.
Yeah, okay, now I'm seeing the ads. Yeah. Okay, I typed in candy corn because that was the first thing that came to my mind, and now I see ads for candy corn. Got it.
Yeah.
I am curious why that's the first thing. But
I have
that's
no
fine.
idea.
Okay.
It's my brain makes no sense to me either. So,
okay. Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Microsoft has used Windows as a vector for ads since, I guess, Windows 8. And that has only gotten worse over time. The Start menu in Windows 10 is full of ads today, and the Start menu in Windows 11 is not, but the Start menu in Windows 11 is brand new. And they already have a section in it called Recommended, which I think should freak people out a little more than it is. Recommended could mean all kinds of things, because I got to tell you, recent documents, I don't understand why they're recommended, but okay, they fall into there. That's fine. They're going to start recommending apps. Oh, they already do. I'm sorry. They literally already recommend apps, but eventually they're going to, the recommended will be exactly what it sounds like. There's going to be ads in there, just like there are going to be ads in that widget
maybe.
thing. Of course,
we don't know that for a fact. We don't know that for a fact.
You know what, though? Don't we? No. I mean, come on.
What they should do is change that word recommended to recent and just solve the issue.
And just make it that. I wish they would, but they're not going to.
Yep.
And I think it's for your reason. And, it's cynical or not. I think
that's
it's realistic.
Scary. I don't like that, because I don't mind operating system getting to know me a little more and serving me up things that I might want to open based on my usage. That I'm fine with. And so right now, my recommended, it's like, oh yeah, those were things that I was just recently messing around with. So I wouldn't mind opening those, including one which was an app. I had downloaded the Audible app onto the Windows PC. But if that starts also including ads for candy corn, that's troublesome.
Yeah.
It will. Right. It definitely will. I know it will. Because that's all they ever do.
That's a prediction, just to be clear.
And by the way, you got to look at it this way. I mean, Apple gives away their OS updates for free, and this is still kind of a recent concept for Microsoft. They struggle with this. Windows 10, one of the promises was we keep you up to date. Blah blah blah. I'm sure. If pressed, I'm sure someone from Microsoft or from their PR department would say, "God, you got this thing for free. We're giving it to you for free." Right. It's a whole OS upgrade. It's a brand new system. I mean, sorry, we want to make some money off of maybe selling you on OneDrive storage or through Bing searches or whatever these little things may be. And my response to that is, let me pay $50 for it. I never want to see this ever.
Just like the Kindle, how you can pay to never see an ad on your
there
Kindle.
you go. Exactly.
Oh yeah, buy the more expensive Kindle for no ads, or get one for a discounted rate.
I want the no ad experience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
There you have a choice, though. All right, so you're saying that there could be a version where you've got free Windows, and then you've got the that's not your prediction.
I'm saying I wish there was that. I wish that for Google as well. I'd like to pay Google, not be tracked around the internet, but still be able to access their services. How much am I worth to you every year, Google? What do you think the number is? $25, $30, $50? I don't know. I really have no idea how much money they make off of me. But I'd like to pay that amount and never have to think about that stuff ever again.
That would be nice.
There'd be a choice,
Yeah,
I
exactly.
just like the
Choice. That's the important
It won't
thing.
be for everyone. I get that,
Yeah. We've got more to talk about with the PC market and some more with Microsoft, but we're going to take a quick break so I can tell you about Endava. We're bringing you this episode of Windows Weekly, a podcast you should check out. Season 2 of Endava's podcast, Tech Reimagined, is out now. Tech Reimagined brings together leading tech personalities and industry experts such as Guy Kawasaki, Mary Williams, Alex Hunter, Brian McBride, Tom Gruber, Dave Copeland, Emma Martinez, Viola Llewellyn, and more. The podcast discusses the big questions around technology and its industries. Guests and hosts will be talking about how these trends impact our everyday lives and how our relationship with technology is constantly reimagined. That's where the title comes in. Got it. Check out the episode Insurance Reimagined Parts 1 and 2, where guests Anne Norclett and Kevin Crawford discuss the role IT plays in the insurance industry. Or the 2 episodes about the role of AI reimagined. Boris Sergal and Radu Orgadan talk about how the regulations, accountability, and expectations that arise when using AI to solve complex problems come up. They discuss what the future holds for this technology and for the individuals who are using it on a daily basis. Are you interested in shopping? Well, catch parts 1 and 2 of Our Shopping Experience Reimagined with guests Thomas Beechin and Jeremy Mays, where they dive into some of the most significant shifts they've seen in consumer behavior over the last 12 months, including the increasing popularity of direct-to-consumer and buy online, pickup in-store, and how the shift to digital is pushing people and companies to reimagine the way we shop. Endava has been reimagining the relationship between technology and people. Tech Reimagined explores this relationship on a deeper level with a look at the most recent experiences with technology and its experts. Learn more about how tech is becoming so much more in this world that is constantly growing and changing. It's a podcast you don't want to miss. Subscribe and listen to Tech Reimagined, the podcast from Endava, from wherever you get your podcasts. Look it up and check it out today. Thanks so much, Endava, for sponsoring this week's episode of Windows Weekly. Let's talk about the PC market.
Yes, let's. So I've always been fascinated by PC sales and how they compare year over year. I'm not very good at math, which kind of makes this strange for me, but I'm very interested in this topic, and I've been following this for years and years. And one of the big stories of the past year, of course, is COVID and the impact that has had on PC sales in particular, but any device sale, right? And a couple of interesting points here. Last year, PC sales overall grew less than 10% from the year before. That was the net result. PC sales before last year had fallen almost every single year since 2011. They kind of plateaued in 2019, actually. People kind of forget about that now. And then they jumped about 8.6% last year. So the number of PCs that were sold last year is identical to the number of PCs that were sold in 2015, which is the year that Windows 10 first launched. But the expectation, of course, is that PC sales are going to, fall off a cliff, right? The interesting thing is, I just saw this now searching my own site. I had forgotten about this. In January 2020, right before the pandemic hit, Gartner predicted that PC sales would fall in 2020, 2021, and 2022, right? Mm-hmm. And that that 7-year cycle would go to 10 years. But of course, we've seen this kind of blip. And one of the theories about Windows 11 is that Microsoft is trying to keep the sales boom going a little bit, right? Maybe, give a little punch to the market. But I don't think it's going to work. So the news here is that the first quarter of this year, sales of PCs overall, depending on who you ask, IDC, Gartner have different numbers, were somewhere between 37 and 55% higher than the same quarter a year earlier. Notebook sales alone were up 81%. That's insane.
Wow.
And then the second quarter happened, and the whole market rose 11% year over year. So you could make an argument at the beginning, this quarter compares to the beginning of the pandemic. It wasn't clear how long the pandemic was going to last. Who can say? But I think this kind of points to the fact that the PC market is going to settle back down to where it was sometime this year. So we went from 40-something% growth the quarter before to 11% last quarter. I think it's going to keep heading in that direction. So And someone somehow on the show, I don't remember who said this, but someone asked about, I think it was Micah, had asked about whether Cloud PC or Windows 365 would impact like corporate sales of computers. And corporate sales were actually one of the few bright spots this past quarter. Consumer PC sales fell off a cliff last quarter. So I don't think Windows 11 could happen fast enough. I don't think that it's going to make much of a difference. But I think what we're seeing is just us settling back into the way the world was. Because, people don't need a PC every year.
Right.
Unless you're me and you need like 11 of them every year. But you know what I'm saying. Most people do not need PCs. New PCs, sorry.
So Microsoft has acquired a company called RiskIQ.
Right.
I could use some context clues to try and determine what RiskIQ is for, but I'd rather hear it from you both. So tell me, what is RiskIQ and what's Microsoft gain from getting this?
Yeah.
Well, Paul, you sound so thrilled.
This is the purchase they make before they buy AttackIQ, which will be their next security-related company. No, I mean, they're a threat intelligence and attack surface management solution provider. So I think the reason I've even heard of this company is they come out with these reports every once in a while talking about risks and how these things have evolved over time and so forth. And they have a really big community of people providing feedback for threat intelligence, as well as security researches and AI that they use to analyze those threats. And so Microsoft, there's a couple of unclear things. What do they pay for this? Bloomberg says it was over $500 million, by the way.
I know, yeah.
And then how or whether they will integrate this into their existing security solutions, which, for commercial customers, right? This is, again, not a consumer product, really. And we don't know. I mean, they said they're going to continue to support and grow their community, and community meaning the people that provide that threat intelligence data as well as security professionals. But, I don't know. Does this stay as a third-party company? By the way, this thing works with other products. It's not a Microsoft-focused thing, right? It works with Amazon AWS. It works with on-prem solutions. It works with other clouds, So, I mean, this is a heterogeneous world. I mean, that is not too surprising, but it's just not clear yet how Microsoft integrates this thing into their existing offerings. So we shall see.
Will it fix Print Nightmare?
No. But actually, you asked about how our Patch Tuesday went, and supposedly that went out, the fix, but they tried to fix it before, and it didn't work.
It's that game that you play in was Whack-A-Mole? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve Gibson yesterday was, I'm in for Leo on Security Now as well, because Jason Howell is on vacation too. And he explained the Print Nightmare thing and everything that's involved in it. It's kind of wild how in-depth it is. And I mean, the feature that it's based on is a really handy feature. I'd love to be able to access any printer that I need to on the server and not have to download a bunch of drivers and do the driver dance, as I like to call it. And it's a shame that these bad actors are such clever folks. That's all I have to say about that. It's like, darn it. I wish you wouldn't have figured that out, because now so many people have to disable it. Although the big tagline from that whole thing was, as Microsoft put in its own support documentation, enabling one of the registry entries makes your machine, quote, vulnerable by design. Vulnerable by design. That's not a great look for Windows, I would think, to call Windows vulnerable.
This is what security hackers, or whatever you want to call them, do. I mean, you look through all the different subsystems in a popular platform for Windows. You look at something that is probably not gotten a lot of eyeballs in recent years, preferably some kind of a legacy thing. Like, I'm sure 20 years ago, printing was a lot more important than it is today. And all that, not that there aren't businesses that have to print, obviously, but I mean, it's one of those things I think people just take for granted and don't think about, which makes it perfect to exploit. And if you can find a component like they did that incorrectly raises the security authentication of a user, and you can run arbitrary code and, the things that have nothing to do with printing, perfect. It's perfect. It's a perfect exploit. Yeah. Just turn off printing. You'll be fine.
And apparently won't
That's
even
what
let you
people
print.
are doing, right?
Yeah, that's what they have had to do. It won't even let you print to file when that's when your print
Right.
spooler's turned off. So I print a PDF all the time on my Mac.
I do too. Yep.
Yeah. Anyway,
Yep.
I think it's time for Xbox Corner.
Well, good news, all you Xbox haters. There's not much to say this week.
Woohoo.
Yeah, I know. Sorry. So, Xbox Family Safety app, which is a mobile app for iOS and Android, is a way for parents to monitor and manage their kids' usage of Xbox. This thing was released, I want to say last fall, probably, and it's been expanded pretty quickly. So I'm sure they get feedback, and it's like, oh, yeah, we need this kind of thing. So the big update this week is all about managing the money that your kids can spend online, which is obviously is a good thing. So you can have kind of an allowance type system where they have spending limits. And if you do that, your kid can use that money for anything on Xbox. There's a system for ask to buy, which is very similar to other features in this app where the kid wants to buy something, but there isn't enough money or whatever, that you didn't enable a spending limit thing, and the parent gets a notification. You can say yes or no, or you can make the purchase on behalf of the kid or whatever. And then you can view their account balance and all that kind of stuff and decide if you need to add money or see what their spending history is and all that kind of stuff. So it's just a kind of an evolutionary thing. And so that's available. I don't use this app. My kids are old. Well, I almost said older than me. My kids are adults, so they're not older than I am, but they need they act more older than I am. And then the other thing, and this is not directly related to Xbox as the announcement goes, but I think there are implications here. So Stadia, which is Google's game streaming service, has obviously had some controversy over the past couple of years. They've lost all these key executives. They killed their in-house work on exclusives for the service. And it's Google, right? So everyone's like, okay, when are they going to kill it? It's only a matter of time. But the truth is actually, Stadia works really well. And there's a free version, there's a paid version where you can get games each month as part of your as part of the payment. And you get, better access to the servers and all that kind of stuff. And what Google is doing is changing the way that its partners meaning mostly developers, but also, I guess, publishers, right? The companies that publish the games, can share in the revenue that Stadia generates. And so they're actually going to give 70% of all Stadia Pro subscription revenues to its partners, meaning those publishers and developers, based on engagement, right?
Interesting.
I am not aware. I mean, obviously, Xbox Live Gold, there's nothing like that. And then you look at Game Pass. No one really knows. It's not that transparent. It's not really clear. Like how does Microsoft pay Xbox Game Pass, partners? I don't know. But the way Google's doing it is they're going to give them 70%, and that's amazing. That they didn't compare this to anything, so I don't know what it was before. It might have been 0. It might have been 5. I don't know. Who knows? This might be brand new. They might have never done this before. I don't know, but that's very interesting. And so if you have a game that's played by a lot of people on Stadia Pro, meaning they're not buying the game, they're just using it as part of their subscription, you're going to get the biggest, you as the publisher or the developer will get the biggest chunk of that 70%.
So that's going to draw in more people then, more games, hopefully.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. And then there's some affiliate marketing stuff, which is not a huge deal, but the idea there is that if you have a website, click to play for a game, it launches a Stadia window.
Oh,
they play
neat.
the thing, and then they subscribe to Stadia Pro. You'll get you as the website with or whatever will get $10 every time that happens, and that's cool. And then they're also doing a revenue share now, and this is the part. This is where I'm really. This and the first one, I think, are the two that I think might have implications for Xbox. Obviously, with all the App Store stuff going on with Google and Apple these days, we're kind of paying attention to this. We know that the typical revenue split is 70-30, right? And it's kind of gone down to 85-15, for most small developers, for sure. Google is cutting its cut from 70 to 80%, right? This is for games bought through the Stadia store. So that's what we see. That's what we've seen with Apple and also the Play Store. So maybe that's not that unexpected. But it says this structure applies to the first $3 million in revenues generated by any Stadia title that launches between this year and the end of 2023. And that's interesting. So that means like a big company like EA could come out with some humongous game or whatever on Stadia, and they will only, even though they're a big company that does have more than $1 million in revenues per year, they'll still get that better cut up to the first $3 million. That's interesting. So I'm just wondering, I guess I'm just openly wondering if this kind of stuff is something Microsoft's going to have to look at, because there's only a couple of players in this market now, which is basically Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Sony will obviously play a role here at some point. I know they have PlayStation now, but they'll have a new generation, game streaming service of some kind for sure. Possibly built on Azure, by the way. But I think, I think this is going to have to impact Microsoft. It's going to have to. So it's just kind of good to know about.
So I've been using Amazon Luna for a while now to play Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which, by the way, Mary Jo, I'm sorry, I used to not be a gamer, but then I played some game on an iPad, and it was like an RPG game, lost. And then now I'm into games. I apologize. I don't understand myself anymore either, but I've been playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla on Amazon Luna, and it's been fantastic.
Yeah. Don, do you use the Amazon controller?
I do, yeah. That seems to make all the difference.
It sure does. Yeah. Amazon Luna. Yes. Right. Luna. Luna. Yeah. Amazon Luna with their controller, which has that direct Wi-Fi connection thing, is amazing. Stadia does the same thing if you use their controller. Much better experience. And Microsoft, for all their kind of prowess with the cloud and with video games, I got to say, they have probably the best game selection. No, absolutely the best game selection. But they have more latency and lag than you see with Luna or Stadia. And I've tried it in every permutation. I mean, you can wire the controller with USB. You can do Bluetooth. If you have a dongle, there's an Xbox protocol you can use, et cetera, et cetera. But Stadia, Google did it first, but Amazon did it as well. Like, they're onto something. Like the thing they're doing with their controllers is very interesting. And that's another thing Microsoft should copy in the future if they can.
Yeah, I think so. Ultimately, whatever system ends up being, even if they all work, I like the idea of there being more games available. So if this is what draws people in, that's awesome. Because now you've kind of got the classic choices that you'd expect with the different vendors, and then kind of Amazon fills in with their own partnerships. So there's a reason to kind of need to be subscribed to a couple if you want to try out all the different games that you want to try out. And it'd be nice if you could just choose one.
I feel like Amazon has such a unique role because Luna is one of those services. If I remember this, they probably charge you less if you're a Prime subscriber. It's not something you get for free, but they've built this kind of ecosystem around Prime where a lot of people will just latch onto their music service, their photo service, their whatever, because or their video service. Either you get it free with Prime or you get it for much less money, and it's like, well, this So if you're like a loyal Amazon Prime subscriber, which I'm sure a lot of people don't even think of themselves that way, you might be more inclined to try something like Luna just because it's like, look, this thing's only, what is it, $4.99 a month or something?
Yeah, I think it's cheap. Yeah, not bad. And then you buy the controller separately, but I honestly recommend, if you're going to do Luna, you should do it with the controller because it does make all the difference. All right, we'll quit pulling teeth now, Mary Jo. Up next, it's...
Your Xbox is on the way, Mary Jo.
Exactly.
It's ready to nod off.
Or your Luna controller is on the way, at least.
Wait, Micah, can we do a couple questions from Discord?
John, can we do a couple questions from Discord? I completely got it, yeah. All right, we're going to do a couple of questions from Discord.
It's kind of fun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're still struggling to make this work.
Let's see.
But if they're gaming questions, we're going to not have time.
We want to hear from you, not about gaming.
Let me reopen Discord. So, yes, if you're watching live right now, then head into the Windows Weekly, the Eastside Live stage and raise your hand up in the air and wave it like you just don't care.
Oh, boy.
That was my fault.
No, that's okay.
All right. Let's see. Do we have any raised hands? We've got some people in the stage. No requests yet. but we will give it a second here for folks to hop in.
Case.
And actually, let me post into Windows Weekly as well at WW if you have any questions you'd like answered. Head to Eastside Live and raise your hand. Also, there was a question in the chat. This is, since it's not being asked on stage, we can still ask it, Mary Jo. For Paul, why doesn't Microsoft go back to a wired game controller?
Well, that's an option.
I was going to say, isn't that an option?
Yeah, they come with a USB cable, so you can use that. And yes, the best performance you can get. See, and I'm not 100% sure of this. Well, the best performance you can get with Xbox Cloud Gaming is definitely with a wired controller. It's still not very good though. That's the problem. And you know what? I haven't tested it with a device like an iPad or whatever. I sort of assume that would work, but then of course you need like a USB-C, a dual end USB-C, whatever. Yeah, I don't. When they went wireless with the Xbox 360, I thought that was going to fail. I was like, "There's no way wireless controllers can work." And actually, they work fine with an Xbox, But you're installing the game locally; it's a different situation. I mean, you can still have lag and latency issues in games, but as far as like just you're controlling your on-screen character, there's no problems at all. But xCloud or Xbox Cloud Gaming, because it's a cloud-hosted service, the potential for latency or lag or whatever you want to call that is always there, no matter what even in a single-player game.
So folks are a little shy to get up and speak, but that's okay. We do have some questions from the listeners. So the first one comes from, I don't know how to pronounce this name, so I'm just going to go with reading the question. Do the keyboard shortcuts that have it's a username? If it was an actual name, I would try to pronounce it. But as a username, do the keyboard shortcuts that have been cut from Windows 11 have any indication they'll be added back in? Shift plus D being the big one that impacts me dozens of times a day.
Shift plus D.
I don't know what that does. What does Shift plus D do? We've got a question for the audience.
I do a lot of Windows key, like Windows key plus D, which hides or shows the desktop still works.
Somebody said Shift plus D gives you a capital D. Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
They said it deletes things without them going to the recycling bin.
Oh, yeah. Wait, you're saying that? I think that does work. Let me.
Yeah, it can't be Shift.
I feel like I've done. I feel like I do that all the time.
D, maybe.
No. As you select the item, hold down the. It's not Shift D. It's Shift Delete.
Oh, Shift Delete.
Yeah, no, that still works. That works the same. It works the same.
Oh, excellent.
The thing I mentioned.
We do have a hand in the chat. But go ahead and finish your thought there, Paul.
No, I was just going to say the thing I mentioned before. I'm not aware of keyboard shortcuts that have disappeared. I'm aware of a few that have changed. That was the thing I was pointing out earlier. Like in Windows 10, Windows key plus A brings up Action Center. In Windows 11, it brings up Quick Settings. But if you want to see notifications like before and you were using Windows key plus A, you need to learn Windows key plus N.
Got it.
For Windows 11.
So things might shift. Is there a global keyboard shortcut setting in?
Yeah, you go to google.com and you type in
how to change global.
Yeah, there's no.
There isn't?
Actually, you know what? Microsoft, if I'm not mistaken, made a power toy that displays all of the keyboard shortcuts in Windows.
That's one of the first things I play with on my Mac is making my shortcuts my own.
Oh, you want to customize them?
Yeah. Like a global customization option.
Oh my God. Please, let me explain to you how Windows works.
This is wild to me because the whole thing has always been Mac is such a locked down platform. Mac OS is such a lockdown platform, and Windows has all these things. So I guess you could if you downloaded a third-party app, but it's just not available to do by default.
I have long wished for this thing, and I suspect the reason we don't do it on the Windows side is for IT reasons, so that, well, not that people do this too much these days, but so someone from the help desk walks up behind you at work and you're having problems and they're hitting keys and they're not doing what they're supposed to do, and then they find out the person remapped some keyboard shortcut or whatever. But I don't know. I feel like Windows should be completely customizable, but it is not.
Our next question comes from Jim. Jim asks, "Hi, Paul and Mary Jo. What kind of cell phones do you use every day?"
I can't wait to get my new phone. But right now, I use a Pixel 3 XL, an old Pixel that I still love. But wait till the Pixel 6 Pro comes out I think October is when they're saying. I will be the first one in line at the Google store.
You'll be the second one in line, Mary Jo, because...
No.
Yeah, me too. I use a Pixel 4a 5G.
I don't like Samsung. I'm not a Samsung person. No.
I used an iPhone for about 10 days recently because I wanted to test iOS 15, which for me is not a tremendous upgrade because I just don't do a lot of the Apple buy-in stuff, you know. I think if I was more enmeshed in Apple, maybe it would be a bigger deal. But a couple small things related to notifications and I don't remember what else. But, well, obviously, the tracker stuff actually is in 14. Whatever, it doesn't matter. I didn't like it at all. And I have used iPhones. I've owned almost every iPhone that's ever been made. I just found it to be a very miserable experience. And the thing that kind of killed it for me, and the reason we both, Mary Jo and I, or one of the big reasons, and many other people use Pixels, is for the camera. And on 4th of July, trying to take pictures of fireworks, and Apple, of course, has a night mode you can't disable, and they know best, and they'll every time I took a picture, a little thing went, and then the sky came out blue like it was the middle of the day, and my pictures were terrible. And if I had had a Pixel or a Samsung, like those pictures would have been beautiful. And you know, that kind of Apple knows best thing, that's the big one for me. That's where it really bites me. I just find it to be irritating. But I mean, I like some OnePlus stuff. Samsung, yeah, you know. But I keep going. I go back to the Pixel experience where it's really clean and nice, and I'm just like, man, this just works, you know?
Yeah. Well, we will have to agree to disagree on that, but we've got another question from Tony Tech who says, then I think this is a really good one. At first I was like, I don't understand, but when you think about what Windows 365 is going to be used for with folks at work and they're using Teams all day and maybe they're logging in from home and using Teams or Zoom, any talk about webcam latency with Windows 365? It's a little early days for that, I'm sure, but did they talk at all about kind of latency of the system in general at this, what was it called?
I don't know
Inspire?
I don't know if you watched the Inspire keynote. It was like an episode of the Today Show. I thought this event was bizarre, and I waited and waited and waited for them to finally mention Windows 365, and then they did, and I got really excited. And then 3 minutes went by, and they were on to something else, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" There's a lot more information on the web. Microsoft actually has a press release for this, which they almost never do. There's a blog post. There's multiple blog posts on the Microsoft 365 blog, the Windows blog. And then they have a site for it, right? So I think it's probably Microsoft.com/Windows 365 or whatever. A lot of information there. They literally never get into anything like that. And that's why I asked Mary Jo up front.
Yeah.
Based on screen, they're not even screenshots. They're just images. They're not actual literal screenshots. It looks like you're going to be able to virtually access applications, which I think would be huge. And by the way, would be a big thing for people on an actual Windows computer. Have that thing in the start menu. Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sure, you know. I just wasn't sure.
Start menu? I don't know. I don't know about accessing the start menu. In fact, I saw somebody say
I mean,
that's
just a detail. I just mean, like, it wasn't clear from reading all that.
I know. They didn't talk about applications.
Right.
I'll tell you, inside baseball stuff, like, I feel like this announcement came together this morning. Things kept changing. They wouldn't give you certain blog posts under embargo. I'm like, a lot of moving pieces here, and I don't think they've completely decided on some things.
Right. So the answer is we don't know. Sorry.
We don't know. I mean, we know you're going to be able to access Microsoft applications remotely, and any application you have, custom or not. That is something you run on your Windows desktop.
Well,
we know that.
I suppose if you have access to Azure Virtual Desktop today, because it is essentially the same technology, I would assume they're the same experience. And I don't know what that experience is like. If, in other words, you're using a remotely hosted app like Skype or Zoom or whatever, and you want to use the webcam on your computer, is there latency in that scenario? I would guess there might be, but it's probably going to be the same experience.
Yeah, they didn't talk about performance at all pretty much today anywhere that I saw. Yeah.
No, I think if you want to use a webcam, you need an 8-core CPU. It'll be $149 a month, and here's where you sign for that bill.
Our last question comes from Kev Brewer, who asks, any notable changes to Teams this week?
Of course there are. There's a million every week.
Right. In fact, that would be a good new podcast.
Just changes to Teams.
Would.
Teams Weekly.
Yep.
It really would. There was some things about Teams connected apps that were announced
that's what I'm trying to find
at Inspire. So to me, I don't still fully understand this Teams connected apps thing, because when I hear them describe what this means, I'm like, don't you just mean other apps are integrated with Teams? Is that what you mean when you say that?
That's exactly what you mean. Yep.
So, okay.
In other words,
they had
the
some
app
partners.
appears in Teams. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, so they had some new partners. Or maybe some that they have not yet disclosed. Some were on that list who they already had disclosed, like Salesforce. But they said there were new Teams connected apps. I've got a little bit in one of my picks today about some integration news with Teams and Dynamics that I'll talk about a bit. But yeah, I feel when I look through this list of features, I'm like, yeah, there's a million features this week, just like every week.
Yeah, right, exactly. Every week. So, yeah, if you really care about this stuff, Microsoft has a Microsoft 365 blog that the top post today is literally what we just described, like the the Teams features. Well, collaborative, yes, Teams features.
Yeah. Collaborative apps, that's what it's called.
Collaborative, it's mostly Teams, right? So, that they're announcing at Inspire.
Yeah.
By the way, earlier we were talking about that Shift D shortcut, and we're saying just makes a capital D. So the key that's pressed before is the context menu key. And then by holding down Shift and pressing D, you know how it has those little letters that are underlined in the context menu to quickly access one of those? That's where it came from. So just some clarification for folks out there who are thinking about writing in like, that's not a thing.
Right.
But I thought I was on Windows 11, and I hit context menu, and then I see delete is underlined.
It's underlined.
The D, yeah. So I could hit Shift D and remove it, but I don't want to get rid of that folder.
Oh, because you're selecting. Sorry, I need to select. This is when you're literally have like a
First select a file, then context menu, then Shift.
That's interesting, right? So it's the Windows 11 context menus are changing, and on the desktop, there's a show more options option that gives you the old menu, which I think is kind of a goofy thing to do, but of course it doesn't pass through. But now they have icons at the top for cut, copy, rename, I guess, and delete. And cut is automatically selected. So I assume if you just hit enter, it would cut it, which is halfway to delete. I don't even see the delete option on this thing.
You don't get rid of files anymore.
I feel like, I'm working in 11, so I don't see it, but I feel like in Windows 10 and earlier, it would give you that delete would be fully delete. Like it would bypass the recycle bin, right? Is that how that?
Yeah, that's what they're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't even see. It's funny. Well, I have the icons.
That's what they're saying. Even with this, you hit Shift D, and it gives you there's no option to bypass. It gives you that confirmation of
no, but the confirmation says, "Are you sure you want to permanently delete this file?" So it actually does work the same way. It just looks different.
Oh, so the one thing that you don't have the one thing that they don't have that they want is to bypass that warning. It sounds like.
Well, the way you bypass it is you don't hold down the Shift key. Like if you. You know what I mean? In other words, you have a file, you want to delete it. So you hold down the Shift key, you right click, and you select the delete icon now. That will permanently delete it if you say OK. But if you don't hold down the Shift key and you right click and you choose delete, that will put it in the recycle bin. It actually does work like it did before.
Gotcha. Okay.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. But yes, that makes sense. Sorry, I'm trying to translate what the person is saying.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of, I don't have Windows 10 and Windows 11 in front of me right now. But I know it said delete before. Now there's an icon. But it literally, if you hold Shift or don't hold Shift, it does work as it did before. It just looks different.
Gotcha. All right. Well, up next are the picks and tips. It's time for picks and tips. Tips and picks. Picks and tips. What do you got for us?
So the tip of the week. So I've been doing a bunch of. Well, actually, I've only done a couple. But I will eventually do a bunch of like what I call feature focus articles about new things in Windows 11. And the first one I did was about Snap Layout, which is that really cool feature where you kind of mouse over the maximize button and it gives you like thumbnails of the different layouts that are possible. And when you select one, the window you're looking at goes into that position, and then you get the Snap Assist feature for the other spaces that are available on the desktop. It's nice. It makes Snap a little more discoverable, right? So it's a good thing. But there's a related feature tied to this called Snap Groups, and I intended to write about this about a week earlier than I did, but I kept using it, and I think the issue is where it's not fully baked yet. And the idea here is you create some kind of a Snap layout, right? So this can get complicated because it works across multiple displays and it supports different layouts. But just to keep it simple, you have like Excel and PowerPoint, and they're both sharing the screen 50-50. That's the layout. And, and maybe you do something. You close them, you detach your external display. They snap back into your normal display. You sign off, sign back in, whatever it is. Like things change. But you're like, I really want to go back to that. The way this is supposed to work, and does sometimes work, and it's not always, but when you mouse over an icon in the taskbar, you get a thumbnail representation of the actual window, and it's kind of a nice little visual cue. Oh yeah, that's the one I want. For windows that have been snapped into layouts, you will now see a second thumbnail, and possibly even more if they've been in multiple layouts. Although I've never seen that. Where it actually gives you that layout again. So, for example, if Excel was in the taskbar and you moused over it, you would see the thumbnail for just the Excel window, which if you selected would bring it back full screen, wherever it was. But next to it will be a thumbnail for that layout that you chose previously, half and half with PowerPoint. So if PowerPoint's not running and you select that thing, PowerPoint will run, and those things will both snap into their position. So it's kind of it's like a memory feature for Snap layouts, if that makes sense.
You can't make your own custom Snap layouts, right?
So, the only way you can do it is to. Oh, you mean? Well, yeah. So technically, you sort of can.
They give you a bunch of templates for them, right? But can you make one up yourself?
So I'm going to make something up right now because I'm not actually sure if this works. But the one thing I've noticed is when you do a Snap layout, if you had 2 apps 50-50 or 3 apps where it's like 50, 25, 25, you can drag the dividers between those apps and kind of resize them, I guess, right? So maybe to make it simple, instead of 50-50, you had 60-40. Mm-hmm. It seems to me that if that was your preference for those apps, and you later came back and said, I want to do that again, and you select that thumbnail, you should go back to that thing you created. Now, actually, I literally don't know that that's what I'm saying. I'm making this up. But it seems like it shouldn't just remember the relative positions on screen. It should remember how you've sized them. But I actually don't know if that's true. I don't know if it does that or not. Yeah. But in a sense, that's what you're asking for. So if you took the time to really customize what these things, how they snapped on screen, because you only have certain layout possibilities, right? On a standard aspect ratio screen, you could have 4 apps at most, right? If you had an ultra wide display, you could have 6. You can't, you couldn't just sit there and resize them, and they have to still be snapped for them to save.
Yeah. Right.
But if you work within the confines of that, I feel like that should work, and now I'll have to test it to make sure. But like the 40-60 thing I was saying, it's still they're still snapped, right? And they're different sizes than they were before. Does it save that as a snap group? It should. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm kind of playing around with it right now, and I've gone from the default that it had to like an 80-20, and then I'm switching back to the main one, the other desktop, and then if I switch back.
If you just mouse over one of the icons for one of those apps, do you see the second thumbnail?
No.
Yeah, see, it's bulky. Like what I found is I would have written this days earlier, but I couldn't get it to work reliably. And then finally I realized this thing is just not quite baked yet. And so I finally found some apps where it was fairly consistent, so I used those. But you even get into weird situations where you have like a 3-app layout, 3-window layout, whatever you want to call it, and then you maybe you resize one of the 3, like you actually pop out the other one of the 3, and then that layout gets saved as a 2-app layout with an empty hole in it. It's like, it just doesn't seem exactly what you were looking for, but I think it's one of those things they're going to fine tune over time.
All right. Now it's time for the app pick of the week.
Yeah, actually I have 3 app picks, but they're all really short. Firefox 90 just came out today, actually. This is a minor update. You remember Firefox just did a major update where they revamped the entire UX of the app and everything. Actually, I think it looks really nice now. But they've enabled background updating on Windows, exceptions for HTTPS only, print to PDF, adds clickable hyperlinks, which I think is a big deal. And then the fun one is Smart Block 2.0. So Smart Block is Firefox's anti-tracking technology. It's specifically designed to go after things like Facebook and Google and all that. But what they found was that if you were using a third-party plugin for Facebook logins, like you might see on WordPress, I'm not 100% sure WordPress is the exact culprit here, but let's say WordPress, you could still get tracked by Facebook if you used a third-party. I don't know why I'm laughing at that. It's not funny. Anyway, they fixed that. So if you, I don't know why that's humorous to me. Anyway, they fixed that. So if you are using you wouldn't know you were using it, but if you are using Firefox and hit a third-party Facebook login on a site and you do use that, now you won't get tracked. So good for them. Also, the Google Drive desktop client has been overhauled. It's basically the version that they were using for their commercial customers. So consumers used to have something called, I think it was called Backup and Sync. It was kind of garbagey, but now they have basically something that works exactly like OneDrive. So if you're familiar with OneDrive, you know that there's one client that works across commercial and consumer. You can have multiple accounts signed in, blah, 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 whatever. So they're doing that as well on the Google side. So if you do use Google, I'm sorry, but anyway, that's going to get better. And our good friends at Stardock have an app called DeskScapes, and this is a way to customize backdrops. You can actually have animated video-style wallpapers. Remember they promised that for, what was it, Windows Vista, I think, was going to have, or did have it, right? It was like an Ultimate Extra. Was it called Dreamscape? I think it was called Dreamscape, actually. I could be wrong. I think it was called Dreamscape. Anyway, Stardock has an app called DeskScapes. DeskScapes is now available on Steam. So the next version of DeskScapes is on Steam in early access. It's only $2.99, and it's just the next version of the app. And so it's for people who really like to customize their computer with animated wallpapers and more advanced customizations that are possible with stock Windows. So they're starting to put a lot of this stuff. Steam is turning into kind of a general purpose store, it seems. It's Steams. I don't know why.
God.
I know. I'm awful. I am a father. I can't help it.
All right. It's time for the Enterprise Pick of the Week.
Another announcement from Microsoft Inspire today was something called the Cloud for Sustainability. So if you know these different vertical clouds Microsoft's been doing, like there's a cloud for healthcare, retail, financial services, nonprofits, manufacturing. They're all vertical bundles of cloud services plus templates and tools to help you, if you're in those vertical industries, kind of customize your cloud quickly to do things specific to those industries. So the Cloud for Sustainability is somewhat like this, except it's more of a horizontal rather than a vertical cloud. Microsoft says they bundle together their various cloud services, like Office 365, Dynamics 365, and such. Then they also give you APIs and tools and templates to do things that will help you measure how close you are to achieving a specific carbon footprint measurement that you want to achieve as a company, that kind of stuff. Anything around sustainability. Scorecards, what else? Here's another example I gave. Pinpointing specific emission areas that you want to track. It seems very specific to me, but I guess in their work with digital transformation across all industries, there are a set of people who care a lot about this, no matter what size company and what type of company. So they decided to package it up as one of these cloud bundles. So right now, Cloud for Sustainability is in preview. They didn't say when it would be out generally available, but if you want to kick the tires on it now, you can. They announced it today.
Awesome. There you go. And what's next?
Okay, so we were talking about, I think Kev Brewer asked about Teams announcements of the week. So there was an announcement about Teams and Dynamics 365 integration. So Microsoft's been doing a lot of this between these two stacks of products, Teams and Dynamics 365. They announced a lot of things around this at Build, I believe. And today, so there are not a lot of details on this yet, specifics, but I'm going to read to you what this is because a lot of people seemed very interested in this. They said Microsoft Teams customers are going to be able to access, view, and edit Dynamics 365 data inside of Teams at no extra cost, even if you don't have a Dynamics 365 license. So you would think to do the full integration between Teams and Dynamics, you would have to license both products. But because Microsoft's so intent on boosting their Dynamics numbers, they're trying to use other products and services to kind of drag people into Dynamics. And this is another example of that. So they're saying, you know what? Even if you don't have a Dynamics license, you can start working with your Teams data, with your Dynamics data right inside Teams. I'm going to be curious to see how this works and if it kind of sets the stage for them to do this with other products that they want to use to kind of drag customers into another new area. But yeah, I saw a lot of Dynamics customers and partners very interested in this, and they're like, oh, that could save me some money. That could be kind of cool. So yeah, I think stay tuned for more specifics on how that's actually going to work. But yet again, as I put in the notes, Teams and Dynamics are getting even more chummy.
Chummy.
Chums. Chums.
All right. And to round things out, we've got a drink pick of the week that has me very interested. Tell us about it.
Yeah. So this is not a beer. This is a drink I've been making a lot in these really hot days of summer. It's a really old drink dating back I think centuries. It's called Switchel. And the version I've been making is with ginger, honey, lemon, and apple cider vinegar. If you look up Switchel on the web, you'll see all these different recipes for it. But basically what you do is you take raw ginger, you cut it into chunks, you boil it in some water. Then you add honey, apple cider vinegar, and lemon juice and some lemon slices, and you put it in your refrigerator overnight. You shake it up. You can top it off with seltzer or just plain water or just drink it straight if you can kind of endure that really pungency of the ginger. I was thinking it would be nice with a shot of vodka, perhaps, also as an alcoholic drink. I have not tried it that way, but in the morning, when you want to have something to kind of wake you up and get your digestion rolling.
Right, yeah.
This
is when I
your
drink vodka. That's smart.
That is, right?
I love ginger so much.
Micah, you would love this drink,
yeah,
I think.
I've got to try it because my favorite seltzer water is ginger seltzer water, and I always have those little ginger chews, and I really love ginger. Wow. So this sounds amazing. I'm gonna have to try this for sure. Yeah,
it's really good. It's just so refreshing. It kind of wakes you up, but in a good way. Not like, oh, what is that? The apple cider vinegar gives it a little pizzazz, I feel like. And you know how some people drink apple cider vinegar tonics as a health thing? I don't know if you guys know that, but they do. This is kind of a take on that. I guess there's a drink called Shrubs that are something like
I don't want no shrubs. Only some people will get that reference.
There's some sprigs and twigs.
You win.
Yeah. It's good. I recommend it. I think people should try it.
Somebody recommended Canada Dry Ginger Ale. I don't know, that does not pack the ginger punch I need. None of the ginger ales.
You can get a ginger flavored seltzer water that's pretty good from.
Yeah.
I don't know where it's from, actually. It might be from Costco.
Is it the Whole Foods kind? Because that's the kind I get.
No, it's either Wegmans or... I don't know.
The best ginger drink I've ever had was, you have to like kombucha, but if you like kombucha...
I do.
Health Aid's ginger kombucha is so spicy. Oh, it's so good. I love it.
So do you like spicy foods as well?
See, and that's the thing. I don't really like spicy foods. I don't hate them or anything, but it's one of those. It has to be right in the area before it starts to make you sweat. I don't like it once it's kind of.
Right.
I want it to be pleasant.
Yeah.
But having that bite, because I don't really like eating or food in general, and so it almost becomes
Wait. I'm sorry. So let's step back for a second.
I'm a weirdo.
You don't like food?
If I could go eating?
Yeah, if I could go without eating, I would.
I got to tell you, so that's actually pretty impressive, and you could save a lot of money.
I would if I could.
Like if you don't care, like no, like you have to eat, right?
Right.
So you have to eat, but you don't like fine dining experiences would be lost on you.
Yeah.
Honestly, that's like a superpower.
Wow. So here's what I'll say is that what I try to do, because it's the experiential part of eating that becomes enjoyable.
Yeah.
So people don't like pears because they're gritty. I like the grittiness of pears. You know, the spiciness of it's those things that add some level of interest for me. Otherwise, it's just like I don't care about any of this. So I just try to treat myself occasionally with something that's kind of unique. And most of the time, I just eat the same thing because it just gets me. It takes care of that thing I don't like doing.
Are you one of those guys who drink? What's that horrible drink? That
I did for a while.
That horrible drink.
I can't think of it now. It's Soylent.
It's like a milk. Terrible.
That gritty. It was like the milk of magnesia.
It was emulsified Cheerios, is what it tasted like to me. It wasn't very good.
It was a chalk drink.
And then my doctor said it was not good for me to be doing, so I had to stop. Right. But if I could take a pill every day that gave me everything I needed, that's 100% what I would do. And then like once a month, I would go do the fine dining experience like you talked about, like at one of those gastro molecular places, you know, where you do get all of the experience.
Right. So it's not actually a lot of food, but you have like a cool experience.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what adds it for me. It's less about the taste. Anyway. An interesting little glimpse into my messed up mind before we win Windows Weekly.
I'm glad we learned this about you.
I know.
Windows Weekly records live every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 1800 UTC. You can head to twit.tv/live to watch the show live and join us for laughs, chuckles, and sharing your thoughts in the chat. But the best way to get the show is by subscribing to it. And you do that by going to twit.tv/WW, where you can subscribe to the show in audio and video formats across Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, wherever. You can get these great folks, great works there. And Paul Thurrott of Thurrott.com, anything you want to pitch?
Not really. I've pretty much finished the Windows 10 field guide, right? So I did the last major update to that. I did a fit and finish pass, which actually went better than I thought it was going to. I'm hoping to be kind of done with that. So I'm going to start work on the next one, which will be about Windows 11 soon.
Awesome. And we'll figure out how to move the taskbar to the left or the sermon to the left.
Yeah. That's going to be a big part of it is where did it go, you know?
Yeah. And Mary Jo Foley of All About Microsoft over on ZDNet. Anything you want to pitch?
No, nothing at all, really, right now. I mean, it's kind of a little quiet before the storm type season, you know. Once Inspire's over, I feel like we get a little break in Microsoft land till the fall. So,
right.
Good. Yeah. Well, of course, you can go to those places to check out their work. I'll quickly mention, we took a lot of questions today from the Discord chat, but we also have the IRC chat. I got a few questions from there during the show and during our little Q&A segment. But if you would like to support Twit, the best way to support Twit is by becoming a member of Club Twit. Club Twit is our $7 a month subscription that gets you access to all of the Twit shows ad-free. You also get access to a Twit Plus bonus feed with content you won't find anywhere else, and access to the members-only Discord server where you can join us and also fellow Twit members in sharing your thoughts and talking about all sorts of things. It's a lot of fun in there, and we've really enjoyed it. So twit.tv/clubtwit to check that out. We'd love it if you joined us. In fact, Kev Brewer in the chat just posted a GIF saying, "Come join us," with that creepy guy from the Austin Powers movies. So yes, please do join the club and hang out with all of us. All right, I think that does it. It is time to say goodbye to all of you Windows watchers. Until next week. Hey, I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you are interested in checking out all things smart home and Internet of Things, then you should check out Smart Tech Today, the podcast I, Micah Sargent, do with my co-host Matthew Casanelli. It's all about the smart home and improving your automations.